everybody, welcome to Real Life Sci-Fi with Wade and Willie. I'm Wade.
I'm Willie.
This is a podcast about the paranormal and contemporary mythology. Join us on patreon.com/reallifesci-fi for access to 2 bonus episodes a week, video feeds, and more. Visit RealLifeSciFi.show. We got all the links. Let's welcome aboard the SSRLSF. He's a philosopher, linguist, historian, a 5-time guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. He's the author of 25-time award-winning First Souls Trilogy, and his new book, Quantum Spirituality, swept the American Book Fest for Book Fest Best Book Awards, winning in 4 out of 4 categories, which is pretty fucking amazing. It's Peter Canova. What up, Pete?
Hey guys, nice to meet you. 2 W's here.
Can I call you Pete? Is Pete okay?
You can call me Repeat, but I'm not okay. Yeah, Pete's okay. That's fine.
I'll call you Peter. I can call you Peter.
Yeah.
How are you? You're in Florida,
good.
so thank you for it's late there. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so if I fall asleep, don't blame me.
If you fall asleep, the only people we will blame is us.
Okay.
Most of our listeners use us to fall asleep in bed, so you'd be among good company.
Okay.
Philosopher, linguist, historian. What are you? Like, what are you? Can you pinpoint it just a little bit? Mostly for me, so that I know where I'm coming from, because isn't there also some kind of like positive thinking or like is it psychic? Do you do psychic stuff?
Okay, so I would describe myself as a person on a spiritual journey, and it all started when I was about 22 years old. And I found out that I was a very accurate medical intuitive. All people had to do was give me somebody's name, age, and address, nothing more. And I'd be able to very accurately diagnose either physical or psychological problems they had. And I did this for a number of years. And when I put aside the disbelief of what I was doing, when my rational mind was able to take a back seat and just let the intuitive mind flow, it started opening up all kinds of phenomenon like clairvoyance, clairaudience, remote viewing, premonitions, and things of that sort. So being a Capricorn, I wasn't satisfied just to have the experiences. I wanted to understand the nuts and the bolts behind it. So I started studying ancient spiritual traditions, looking for some explanations, and eventually it led me to quantum physics. And the nexus there is that both ancient spirituality and quantum physics deal with pretty much 3 subject matters, which is light, energy, and matter. And so, you know, the bridge there between the spiritual and the quantum wasn't really that far a leap. So for really like 3 or 4 decades, I've studied those, and they underpin all the different books that I've written that you mentioned earlier in the introduction.
Now I'm excited. I don't know how skeptical I'm going to be, because this is the kind of stuff that I actually kind of jive with. I mean, not the I don't know anything about like the quantum shit, because I'm like,
you will when we're through tonight.
Right? Yeah, the quantum stuff is what's getting me excited about science going into the future, because it's trying to. It's like, well, I'm not going to explain.
Is string theory part of it? Do you know all about string theory?
Yeah, I know about string theory, and I mean, yeah, in a way that's part of it. Really, what's happening in the field of quantum physics is, more than any other branch of science, is they're starting to finally stray into answering what they call the hard question. This is the term scientists use for consciousness. Try to explain consciousness. They've been avoiding and ducking that question for years, but they keep having to bump into it. The interesting thing is that the ancient spiritual masters, particularly the Gnostics, who were Judeo-Christian mystics that were suppressed by the Roman Church about 2,000 years ago in Alexandria, the Gnostics arrived at most of the major theories of quantum physics 2,000 years before the quantum physicists did. So, in reading the Gnostic Gospels, which were actually found, interestingly enough, the Gnostic Gospels, which gave us some real light on these mystics, were found in Egypt in 1945, the same year that the atomic bomb was introduced to humanity. And I think that there's a nexus there too. I think that the dark side of quantum physics was the production of the bomb. The light side of it was the explanation that the Gnostics had about the creations that predated all these quantum theories. So it's pretty cool stuff.
The videos that you put out there explaining quantum spirituality, that was an amazing start to a journey that I'm going to continue after today. But you explaining the Gnostics.
But let's not get too far down into there, right? Because we do something here on the show called the Wow Scale.
Wow scale.
Are you a Wade or are you a Willy?
It stands for Wade or Willy. It's a 5-question quiz, and at the end, you'll be graded anywhere between a 0 and a 5. If you're more of a 5, you're more of a Willy. If you're more of a 0, you're more of a Wade. Are you ready to be Wade on the Wow scale?
What if I land in the middle? What do I get then?
You're the perfect combination of both me and Willy. I mean, maybe that's the best place to be.
Okay.
Okay, here we go with the Wow scale. First question, 3-parter. Do you believe in aliens? If so, have they visited Earth? If so, have they visited Earth in the last 300 years?
Okay, I do, but not in a conventional sense. I don't believe aliens are extraterrestrial. I believe they're interdimensional. I believe that alien visitations come from actual other dimensions rather than physical places in our own universe. And I think what happens is that the movement of alien, so the spacecraft, the rapid movements that just defy, our physical laws. I think that they found a way to actually encase themselves in a bubble of their own physical laws, carry it over into this dimension, and that's what allows all these crazy movements that people always describe.
Sure. And so you do believe they visited Earth, and you believe they've been here within the last 300 years?
Yeah, I do.
Because you're talking about the UAP stuff, right? You're talking about the little egg or the Tic Tac or whatever.
Yeah, I do believe that. I believe even further that the original alien visitation were human souls into material existence here. That's pretty
shit.
Because
damn. I want listen. It's almost like you're going to be too interesting, but we got to keep moving. Second question, ghosts. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't directly experienced it. I know people who have had experiences with what they felt were ghosts. Even though I haven't had direct experience of it, I have to believe in the theory that it's possible because I do believe in other dimensions. I've kind of entered other dimensions in a way, and for dimensions near ours, ethereal, more let's say ethereal dimensions of finer matter. Yeah, I believe there's ways that entities can project apparitions into this world. So yeah, I believe in it, though not from direct experience. Theoretically, I believe in the possibility.
Where are you from originally?
Boston.
And I mean, that's a spooky place. That's an old place.
No
ghost stories growing up.
Yeah, I've got plenty of ghost stories there. I mean, I'm from New England. This is Stephen King land up there, the home of Salem, and we're probably richer in the history of ghosts than than anybody else. But yeah,
we got the old Hollywood ghosts. You got the colonial ghosts.
We have the real ghosts.
You got the OGs. The original
hip LA appearances. We got the real
right,
ghosts.
not the hipsters. Yeah, we have the cool ghosts. You guys have like the legit ghosts.
Yeah. Okay.
Bigfoot.
Tend to believe in Bigfoot a little bit less. I mean, it seems to me that if Bigfoot really existed, we'd have more hard evidence of it. So I mean, is there something out there that could resemble a creature of Bigfoot? I mean, look, I keep my mind open to all possibilities. So I don't say, no, it's impossible. Out of all the questions you've asked me, I think this one is probably the most unlikely one in my mind.
Okay, I'm going to give you a mild no, though, just for interest's sake, because we want to get you that 3. Psychics. You're kind of a psychic, so you must believe in psychics, right? But what do you think about like John Edwards?
There's all kinds of psychics that tap into all kinds of information. So I mean, John Edwards, I'm a little bit familiar with. Is that the guy that
he had that show? He had that show in like the.
And he contacts people's relatives and he gives them messages.
It's cold reading. Yeah. It's like he would take the big people and say, like, I'm feeling a T over here. Is there anyone with a T?
Well, I definitely believe that because I know that I've been able to accurately tell people about relatives of theirs who are around them and I describe their characteristics and they go, oh, that's my grandmother to a T. Okay, so I haven't really gotten messages that, you know, say, hey, tell my granddaughter this or that. But yeah, no,
Right.
I definitely believe that in those kind of psychic phenomena because I've experienced them.
Okay, last question. Simulation theory. Do you know about it? Do you believe that we're living in a simulation?
I believe that it's kind of like the holodeck in the old Star Trek series. You
Yeah.
know, that was where the crew used to go, and they used to do these programs that were so vivid and real they could actually immerse themselves in it and relate to the characters. Well, I think in essence that's what's happened to us. We projected ourselves into a reality that we assume is physical, and we've forgotten that we're the programmers. But I don't want to go into a long-winded answer to your explanation, but there's other reasons that I'm quite sure that we live in a simulation, and it relates to the holographic universe theory and certain studies that have come out about the nature of black holes, which tell us that we seem to be living in a universe that's actually more like a movie projection than anything else.
Right. That's
This
the
is-
fascinating thing, because like to me, a black hole now could be the record keeper of the experience.
Yeah. Well, look what happened with black holes. I mean, first of all, the
This is a nice
holographic
way of him saying you're totally wrong, Willie. All right, go ahead. Tell Willie how he's wrong.
No, actually, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just kind of answering this in a different way from a different perspective, because the black holes have told us something. The study of the black hole, well, first of all, holographic theory started happening about 50 years ago. And a physicist named David Bohm was noticing certain properties like quantum entanglement, which was the ability of particles that are light years apart to be able to instantaneously communicate. And so he started theorizing that, well, maybe we're not all these separate appearances like you, me, and it, and you know, whatever that we think about, but we may be all part of a holographic projection in effect. And the thing about holograms is you can slice them and dice them in any way you want, no matter how small or large. They always contain the picture of the entirety in the part. So it started back with Bohm in those speculations. But what happened, the really cool thing that happened with the study of black holes is, you know, that black holes have an event horizon. Okay, it's a definite area, a boundary where anything inside the event horizon just disappears. We don't know what happens in there. Outside the event horizon, you're still in our universe. So that when they started studying the black holes, they thought that all the information that makes up a black hole would be inside the black hole, in the volume of the black hole itself. But what they found out was that's not true at all. The information that comprises the black hole is on the outside, on the event horizon, and it projects inward. So I see you rolling your eyes. So let me give you an example to make it easy.
No, I'm thinking. I'm not really. I'm not.
No. But I mean, this is really hard stuff. So I always have to give this analogy for people to understand, because this is trippy stuff.
Yeah.
So let's picture a bucket, right? And let's say that our universe is inside this bucket. So everything, you know, you, me, the comings and goings, the stars, the moon, everything that comprises the universe is inside the bucket, which is the information that makes up the universe. So you say, oh, okay, well, that's logical. The information of the universe in the bucket is inside the bucket. It's not. It's on the outside of the bucket. It's on the skin of the bucket in a two-dimensional form that's projected inward to form a 3D picture, like the objects that we perceive in the 3D world. So when they started seeing that this was the properties of the black hole, it really reinforced the holographic theory that essentially we are some kind of holographic projections of a force or something that is coming from elsewhere.
All right. So listen, are you available every Tuesday at 7? Because you're already kind of the best guest we've ever had. You are a 3. I mean, congratulations, you're a 3. Because I believe in simulation theory. Willie doesn't. I mean, I could walk you through it, but you're a 3. The Bigfoot, you gave a soft no too. So, I mean, I think it's perfect. I'm really excited. I want to hear everything that you have to say. But first, Willie, just with that topic.
Tonight on Real Life Sci-Fi, Peter Canova, philosopher, author, linguist, historian, talks about ancient spiritual wisdom and quantum physics, the makeup of our universe, and consciousness and how it all fits together and how we can take all this information and even access this information ourselves as we move into the future. Tonight on Real Life Sci-Fi. So, Peter, the big question is, what is quantum spirituality?
Yeah. Well, quantum spirituality is really exactly what the name says. It's approaching higher consciousness through two different paths, which is ancient spiritual wisdom and quantum physics. And what we find is that the information intersects and overlaps, so it reinforces one another. In other words, instead of negating each other, going in different directions, they go in exactly the same direction and reinforce each other, and answering life's biggest questions, like how did the creation come about, what sustains and what created and what sustains reality and the universe, and what is a human being's place in the picture of all this. And quantum spirituality, the book itself, it's really a roadmap for people on a spiritual journey. And like any map, you want to have at least two coordinates, right? You don't want to have one coordinate and go in a straight line. You want to have a north and south, or latitude and longitude. So quantum spirituality really approaches all these topics that I spoke about from a kind of multidisciplinary standpoint. Quantum physics, spirituality, depth psychology, Carl Jung, neurophysiology, and genetics and epigenetics. It is a number of disciplines that are all put together to connect the dots to create a framework of knowledge for people to use for their own spiritual journey.
Can I ask you, just to get this conspiracy question out of the way?
Yes.
And this might be leading, and I'm sorry to do this, but like, do you think that the leaders of the world religions, I guess in the last 2,000 years, do you feel like
This is going to be very leading. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Willie.
Do you feel like they have been trying to answer the question of spirituality for people, or do you feel like they've been leading people away from spirituality?
Look, I think the founders of religions speak the heart of God. I think their followers found religions. And that's because they don't have the experience that the prophet has, that the person who has the revelations, they don't have those experiences. So they start coming up with their own agendas and their own interpretations and everything else. And usually before you know it, the superstructure of a religion starts building on top of the original revelation and gets more and more corrupted. Okay. So, in Christianity, Jesus founded a movement in ancient Judea that was called the Way. It wasn't called Christianity. If you went back into biblical days and you said to any of the disciples or the people around, Jesus' circle, you're a Christian, they wouldn't know what the hell you were talking about. They were followers of the Way. Now that kind of sounds yogic, doesn't it? The Way. Because it was a spiritual path. It was not a religion. It was a spiritual practice and a spiritual path, and it was certain revelations of knowledge to help people gain what Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. And this is the tradition that the Gnostics came out of, and that the Kabbalists in Judaism came out of, and even in Islam, you have direct analogs, which are the Sufis. So the Gnostics were the mystics of the Christians, the Kabbalists were the mystics of the Jews, and the Sufis were the mystics of Islam. And those three groups of mystics had more in common with one another than they had in their outer religions, because their outer religions had become so corrupted over the ages.
Can I say thank you? I just knew that you would handle that question. It was amazing. Yeah, I love that, because I've always said that the initial ideas have just been lost over time, and I don't want to blame anybody for their spiritual journey, but I love taking it back to the idea that at the heart of it, these mystics were trying to figure out the nature of reality.
Not only trying to figure it out, but they penetrated other dimensions in order to bring the information back. They were like shamans, and shaman were those going back to 12,000 BC. Those were the guys that literally journeyed over to the other side and brought back information in order to heal and help and advise and guide. So really the sages were really sort of the heirs of the shamans. They crossed over these dimensional lines in order to bring back higher information that would be useful for the us poor slobs down here that think we're material bodies.
If this question isn't too big, and I would suggest everyone go watch and read things that Peter, I haven't read your books, but I've watched some videos and I've been fascinated by them. Is there a quick answer to what we're doing here?
What's the meaning of life? Is there a quick answer to that?
Okay, let me give you the Reader's Digest version here, okay? We talk about parallel dimensions, and the Gnostics and the ancients covered this whole thing, and they said that it all begins with consciousness. There is one consciousness that literally has projected all reality, visible and invisible. Now, you can call this consciousness the source, the supreme consciousness, the one, or God. Whatever makes you comfortable. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. It's all the same force that permeates everything. And this force projected out other points of consciousness. Now, in Judeo-Christian terms, you can think of them as angels or whatever, or archangels, but they weren't really. The Gnostics called them eons, A-E-O-N-S, which means eternities in Greek. And what they really were archetypal sources of energy that inspire all life, including even life in physical form. So they were given names in the ancient text like justice, truth, mercy, love, wisdom, clearly archetypal images, but they were conscious entities projected by the source itself. And how do human beings enter into the picture? Okay, well, we are part of that total stream of consciousness that originally projected out from the source, albeit in very diluted or limited form. So the best analogy I can give for people to understand is, you know how a power grid works, okay? So you have the source energy in the power grid, and that energy is distributed through relay stations, and it's stepped down in energy in order to make it useful for homes and businesses to use and everything else. So we are like those relay stations. We are part of that network of consciousness that literally has created and sustained all reality in the universe. The reason why we don't recognize that is we are consciousness in such a limited and diluted form that we really have forgotten our source. The higher you move up in consciousness, the more you recognize that you're part of that source. To be ignorant means you're clueless. You think that physical five senses are everything that is. It isn't. We're just the bottom rung of the ladder. You know, we're the bottom of the iceberg. There's so many other layers of existence that permeate us, that are above us or whatever. And, but we're part of that whole chain of events.
Here's my question, though. You sound very sure about all this. Why are you so sure about it? I'm not challenging you. I just want to know, why are you so sure?
Yeah, well, you got to remember that my point of departure was not book learning. My point of departure was actual experience with getting information from these higher dimensions, which proved out to be very accurate in our material world. So I started from the standpoint of actually having direct experience. And then from there, I proceeded to do the studying of quantum physics and the studying of spirituality that validated the experience that I had. It explained where this information was coming. The study I did in quantum physics and spirituality validated the actual that I was having of getting information from these higher dimensions. And the exciting thing was that they validated each other. So in the text, in the 2,000-year-old text, in my book, Quantum Spirituality, I point out how they predicted the Big Bang, the God particle, and parallel universes and the holographic universe theory, and Einstein's E = mc squared. All these major theories of quantum physics literally are written in the pages of these ancient Gnostic Gospels. Now, they're not going to be in the technical terms that you use in quantum science today because they didn't have hadron collider, particle colliders back then. So obviously they stated it in, different terms, mythological terms, but still very clear analogs to everything that quantum science was pointing to about the origin of the universe and the nature of reality.
But they're clear analogs, not like Nostradamus saying
No.
that like an eagle is going to be burned or whatever.
No. I mean, I can give you several examples, but I'd have to go a little bit, deeper down the rabbit hole to do that.
No,
and
I'll
I don't
take
know
your
how
word
deep down
for
the
it.
rabbit
But
hole.
like Nostradamus, he was a quack, right? Like he was a fraud.
Well, the way that the Nostradamus prophecies
Go
were
on
written,
record. Go on record slamming Nostradamus.
you can read a lot into his readings. Okay, it was written in
Sure.
such a way that
Yeah,
there's a
because
lot of
it's
interpretations there.
opaque.
But
Yeah.
I think the analogs that I'm speaking of are much more pointed and much more direct and clear.
Well, let me ask you this just before we move on. So when you started doing this, when you could get an address and a name or whatever and tell those people like what they were suffering from, did it feel like anything to you, or was it like Mozart playing the piano where he could just kind of like do it? Do you know what I mean? Like, did
Well,
it feel
initially, yeah, I was more conscious of a feeling of like a tingling in my body of like something, some energy, some vibration of energy taking a hold of me. And but then after a while, it became so commonplace that I just look at somebody, I knew what was going on, and I didn't feel anything except getting the images and stuff. So it was a little bit of both, actually.
I know I don't want to treat you like a carnival trick, but can you tell me why I'm super
No.
dizzy right now?
If you're gonna ask me questions about physical health and everything else, I stopped doing this years ago. I'll tell you honestly. People that do the medical intuitives, almost all of us, stop doing it after a while, and purposely don't want to get back into it. Carolyn Mace is another example of somebody who went through the same thing, and there's reasons for that. You just
Well, the main reason though is because I have a doctor friend, and anytime something's wrong, I text him, and he must be tired of that.
yeah. Sorry, don't do those no more.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
All right, let me take a stab. You're kind of mental.
I'm mental.
I'm just kidding you.
Oh,
okay.
Jesus Christ! You don't know how. You don't know how.
I hit a little too close to home, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but isn't that for everyone? If you call anyone,
We found out some new information
like,
about Wade tonight.
No, this is old information. Everyone knows about this. Willie, what else?
So when you hopped on to this river of information connecting to different aspects of our consciousness and whatnot, what is the best way for people to start this quantum spiritual journey? Is it science? Is it diet? Is it meditating? Like, is it all of it? Like, what's the best first step?
Can I add on to that? Like, is it something that anyone can do?
Yes, everyone is capable of this, but the thing is that there's no one answer to your question, because there's no one path to this. There's as many paths as there are individuals. So
kind of like getting a career in Hollywood.
I was kind of unusual in the way that it happened to me a little bit spontaneously, but the pattern with a lot of people is that they hit rock bottom in life. Okay. Either they're alcoholic, they're on drugs, they have tremendous problems that are overwhelming them, and they get to the point where they either have to sink or swim. And some of them will find religion. They'll become born again. Okay. Other people will start on a more spiritual path. But the point is, what both of them have in common is they're yearning to connect with a higher power. And so the impetus for a lot of people, unfortunately, is misery and desperation. With other people, it can happen. Somebody could start reading books about it and get interested in it. Somebody could have their own spiritual practice and meditate and start to feel certain things. Ultimately, there's many different paths to it. But what my belief is, and the reason why I wrote Quantum Spirituality, is that if I could provide an arena of information and kind of a roadmap that might help people to turbocharge their journey by bolstering their faith that there is something out there, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you really work hard at it, and by providing information that's a little bit of a workbook and kind of instructions about things to expect and what you can do to heighten your experience and everything else, then I'm helping them basically get these experiences with extraordinary experiences with consciousness. So I don't claim to be anything but a signpost, because at the end of the day, what I would really like is for everybody to become their own prophet. So a lot of times when I speak publicly, I start off by telling everybody, don't believe a damn thing I'm going to tell you. And they all sit there scratching their heads and say, well, what the hell did I pay to come here, for tonight? And what I mean is, I'm not saying don't pay attention and don't believe me. What I'm saying is that you don't have to take everything I say as gospel, but consider it and use it in your own practice to try and prove it out yourself. Because at the end of the day, I want you to become your own prophet. So you don't need to listen to people like me, and you don't need to take anything on faith. Now, faith plays a role in things, okay? I'm not trying to knock faith, because it can be one of the stepping stones to higher consciousness, but faith also has some issues with it. So for instance, look, it's like this. I can tell you that fire burns, but you don't know that for a fact until you stick your hand in the fire, all right? You stick your hand in that fire and you own it. You have that experience. Otherwise, you're taking it on my word or somebody else's word. So you can see the weakness of faith is that you're always taking the faith of somebody else's belief system. And it might be wrong, it might be correct, or they might have an agenda. You have to get to the point where you can discern the false from the true, what's going to move you forward and what's going to move you backwards. There's many people out there, as you know, that claim to be saviors, that claim to be these religious figures, and they end up drinking Kool-Aid down in Central America. You have to start using some discernment in life.
It feels like you've got it figured out, right? So
not by a long shot.
Well, that's what I mean, though. What is at where you are in your journey? What are you calling it? A higher consciousness journey.
Yeah.
Where are you, and where's there to go? Like, what more is there to sort of discover for you?
I think really for me, it's creativity. It's unleashing, continually unleashing creativity in the form of the books I write. And now, we're working on getting the first book of the first Souls Trilogy, Pope Annalisa, into a TV series. I have a partner who was an ex vice president at HBO. And I'm trying to get this word out through, various means. So when I started this whole thing, my initial feeling was, you know what, I don't want to write a book like Quantum Spirituality. I don't want to write a nonfiction, book like that. I'd rather do it in an entertaining format. So I wrote this trilogy about the first souls that incarnate into material experience, and they keep appearing at different junctures in history when humanity is either going to evolve or, take a serious step backwards into darkness. It was only after, the success in the trilogy that I said, you know what? All the research that I did, like, 3 or 4 decades of research that I did in quantum physics and spirituality that were formed the thematic underpinning of the trilogy. I said, at this point, why don't I put that into a book that's a little bit more pointed and instructional for people? So, that was sort of the genesis of what I do and, where I'm planning to go. I just want to continue to use this information and creativity to see if I can, help other people get to where they want to be.
Do you believe in, well, I mean, you must, like the power of positivity, or just like, there's a million self-help books that are like the power of now, and like, that whole like say yes thing, the Jim Carrey movie, whatever. Do you I guess what I'm saying is, like, does the universe give back what you put into it when it comes to attitude?
Well, yeah, I mean, putting out, having a higher vibration tends to attract higher vibration people and higher vibration circumstances into your life. I do believe that in that law of attraction. I mean, the difference between what I do and those self-help books is the self-help books, you have to take a lot of that on faith. I mean, people are telling you a lot of stuff about what positive thinking and everything will do. And although much of it may be true, my issue with that is it's just one-dimensional. See, so what I'm trying to do is say to people, okay, here's the underpinning of why that may be true. And I spell it out in scientific terms and I spell it out in spiritual terms. So I think it's a more powerful motivator when people are able to see the same truth being revealed from multiple angles, as opposed to, one thing like, hey, if you think, well, if you think positively, great things will happen. You'll get a parking space, you'll get the girl of your dreams and so forth.
From parking space to girl of your dreams. Yeah, Willie, what's your next thing?
I wanted to ask what your perspective was. I didn't see you talk about this. What's your perspective of the Akashic records?
I do think there is such a thing as the Akashic records. I mean, so there's a
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off. Just define the Akashic records for those who don't know.
I listen, Peter can help me if I miss anything, but my interpretation is that it is an information that people have access to, that when they access it, they affect the way that they interpret that information too. But it's really just an old bad version was a book of that was a record of everyone's existence. But I would say my newer version is, it's really just, if you are an intelligent, sentient being, your life force, people have access to look at it.
So let me answer the question by saying that a lot of people don't realize that spirit and soul are not the same thing. All right, there's a difference between spirit and soul. Spirit is that consciousness that never left the harmony of the source, the closeness to the source. So if you want to put it in Christian terms, they're the angels that always stay before the throne of God. Souls are those spirits that kind of broke with the hive mind and went off to pursue individual experience. And that would be us. We would certainly come into that category. The human soul would certainly come into that category, because essentially what we are is spirits having a human experience. We're not humans seeking spiritual experience. We're spirits having a human experience. And the Akashic records, really, that each individual soul, the record of their journey through various dimensions is retained at a conscious level. But we can some people, as like we call it, psychics, can tap into that down in this plane. But most people, when they pass over, they'll go into a plane where they can access their own Akashic records. They can see their individual performance, what they've learned, what they maybe want to enhance, or what they don't want to do the next time around. So the Akashic
like
records,
video game stats. Stats.
Really,
like when you do Grand Theft Auto and you can see how many people you killed and stuff, right? Like that.
Yeah, let me try and put it in a little bit more positive frame. Akashic records are really it's the record of individual soul experience.
And I'm sorry because I cut off the question and answer. Willie, what was your question?
I've always thought that us having a human experience, us being disconnected from the source, or whatever you call it, is us. I always felt like suffering had a big part in that, and that everyone suffers. Is that just a projection, or does that hold any truth to having a physical material experience?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think suffering and physical experience are bound together, and that's simply because we have forgotten our higher origin, and we put ourselves in positions of limited consciousness down here in a world that maybe in some ways the Gnostics believed that we really didn't belong here, that we kind of fell in here by mistake. Other people thought, but there were other Gnostics that said, no, it wasn't a mistake. It was part of the divine plan. I think certainly that, the source allowed us the freedom of choice to experience individuality as far as we really wanted to bring it. And this is about as far as you can bring it, which is spirit in material form. But, when you're in material form, you're subject to the laws of the, material world, which largely in our origins were animalistic. And, we still have plenty of animals in human form that haven't really been clued in. So, the difference between good and evil, I mean, evil really is simply being so far away from the consciousness of oneness with the source that you become completely egotistical and engrossed in yourself to the point where you can do harm to others because there's no sense of unity. There's no sense of empathy with your fellow human beings. So you take a look at the Hitlers and the Stalins of the world. Okay. I mean, you could put them in that category, but there's all different kinds of shades of consciousness, between good and evil, because that's the kind of world we live in. We all have uneven levels of consciousness down here.
Are you religious?
I mean, we mean by religious, like mainstream
Well,
religion?
yeah, any of that stuff. Like, did you come up in a family that was religious or anything like that?
Well, not a super religious family. I mean, I went to Sunday school. I had catechism classes, and I used to play hooky, and I used to get chased down by by the Sunday school master and everything else. But and listen, I will tell you, I'm not one that bashes religion. Okay, I mean, in the book Pope Annalisa, one of the things that she does is reform the Catholic Church from within instead of trashing it like say they did in the Da Vinci Code. And there's a lot of church bashers
I don't know. I kind of
around.
like those albinos, in Da Vinci Code. They were...
Okay. Yeah, I think there's one standing in back of you right now with a club in his hand.
What? No, he's
All right.
ready to whip me.
Anyway, so I'm not a church basher because I believe there's a tremendous amount of knowledge and wisdom in the church. I mean, the Vatican it has one of the greatest repositories in the Vatican Library of knowledge in the world. And if you really looked at the earlier ages of Christianity, there was a tremendous amount of wisdom in there, but it got lacquered over by all the dogmas and the agendas and the power trips and everything
And
else.
the corruption,
So
right? I mean, like,
I
it
think,
doesn't make money to give people that information.
yeah, and I think the church corrupted our society for quite a while, and maybe in some extent you can say it's still doing it today. But I do think eventually what will happen with religion is, by necessity, they will go back more to their spiritual roots, because if they don't, they're going to die.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church can't stand or can't exist in the next couple of years the way it's going right now. And what's going to happen is, as the consciousness of the people change, then the church is going to have to change. The head of the church is going to have to change, or the head of the church is going to be decapitated. So I do believe there's going to be a renaissance in religion, because the trend that we see right now is that people are moving away from organized religion, which, seculars in our country rejoice over. And I don't really particularly agree with secular society. But what's
it's
happening is,
so good to watch those people just struggle with why the priests are fucking children. It's like candy to me.
yeah, but what's going on? What's going on is that as religion is kind of shrinking a little bit, spirituality is rising, and I believe the interaction of the two is going to do more to spiritualize the church in coming years. It may not seem like it right now. When I wrote Pope Annalisa, people didn't think there'd ever be a female pope, but you know what? We had everything come true in that book, except for the fact that she's a female. We had the first pope from a third world country, the first pope that didn't take a regular papal name, but kept his own name, a reforming pope, who a lot of the conservatives, are having conniptions over. In fact, there were so many geopolitical predictions that came true in Pope Annalisa that Times Magazine wrote a series of articles on all of the predictions that actually came to pass in the book. So, I believe I feel positive over time that the church will improve.
That's funny, because that was going to be my next question. Are you hopeful of the future of our material experience winning, or that us winning as humans, the individual versus the machine that is like spinning out of control to like have us not be spiritual right now?
Yeah, I am, but I will tell you, if you look at things on the face of it, it does look pretty dismal right now. And I mean, I think one of the things like that I noticed that in this country is that you have people that have convinced everybody else that they're for all these progressive ideals and everything, and yet they're not. The end result of these policies of the so-called progressivism in this country is really unraveling the country rather than helping it move forward. We see this tremendous reaction against the founding fathers and the whole idea that America was a country that was stained from its beginning and it needs to be kind of destroyed and reconstructed. Well, every country had its problems, and especially coming from an era when bad institutions like slavery existed. But I will tell you, the one thing about this country is it went through a transition. It was one of the first to go through a transition to finally abolish those practices. And it put its mouth where its money is, because many people died in the Civil War, to end those kind of practices. So what we really should acknowledge is that, yes, we weren't perfect, but we were a society that really tried hard and paid in blood to correct itself. That's what we should be looking at. And we should be proud of that, not say, let's destroy the country because at one time, bad things happened here.
Yeah, that's great.
Willie, we got 10 minutes left. What's your best question?
Something that I just caught on to that I would like a little more explanation of, that I heard in one of your talkings, was the idea that light is intelligent. Can you expand on that?
If you can believe the proposition that one source of consciousness projected all reality, the vehicle by which it did that was through light energy. And by necessity, that light energy would have to be intelligent, because essentially it fine-tuned this universe that was just so hard to exist. I mean, you've probably heard all the estimates of the probability of life happening, and they were like astronomically impossible. I mean, it would be like the equivalent of winning 100 lotteries in a row or something like that. But I mean, there's an organization and a fine-tuning that certainly indicate that there is a pattern to existence. And what scientists are finding right now is that along with light, energy, and matter, there's another very important factor, and it's called information. Okay, that light carries information just the way that the DNA in our bodies carry the information that determine our individual physicality. That light energy contains the DNA, or the blueprint of the universe and all its variations and everything else, by carrying this information that's literally encoded into the very particles, the very subatomic particles that make up the world. And that's really not too far-fetched, because if you take a look at the whole basis for computers, it's subatomic particles that carry the information that is enabling you and I to talk together on this screen.
Yeah.
What do you think of like climate change and or not climate change, but like the ability for us to, do you think the world's going to die? Are we going to be road warriors? And if so, what's your outfit going to be? Because I'm going spikes. I'm going to do spikes. Like I'll do a lot of spikes.
Well, I'm just going to wear leather like Mel Gibson because it looked cool. But look, eventually, I mean, there's a lot of ancient spiritual wisdom out there that says we go through ages. In the Hindu tradition, they call it yugas, and we're in the Kali Yuga, which is the last age. And every so many, 4 million something years, the world destroys itself and then reforms again. So ultimately, I don't see the world surviving in the same form that it is right now. But that doesn't mean that things can't completely reform and start anew. I mean, that at least is in the view of Hinduism. As far as climate change is concerned, look, it's definitely real, and there's been some human contribution to it. But I think that the contribution has been exaggerated. I do think we go through these natural cycles, but certainly we ought to be careful not to aid and abet the negative part of those cycles. And so, we should have some consciousness around it. But I also believe that certain people in the green movement have taken way too much advantage of this. And now they've become just another vested interest, that goes around scaring the shit out of everybody to perpetuate their own job market.
When it comes to any politician, I think they've all got some kind of vested interest, right? I mean, like, they're all fucking doing something.
Yeah, everything good gets co-opted in a way.
Yeah.
In the realm of conspiracies and Illuminati and whatnot, you always hear about.
Wait a minute, I'm just going to tell you, yes, I do believe that Willie and Wade are aliens. If that's what is that what?
No. Is that good for me or bad?
Well,
for me?
maybe Wade.
Is this? Wait, but is this where I realized that I'm the ghost, like Bruce Willis in Sixth Sense, or did I know this the whole time? Because if I'm an alien, I'm gonna fucking. What are my powers? I'm gonna do whatever I can to benefit myself.
Wasted as a regular human.
Yeah, right.
I always hear about, and I don't know how much I subscribe to any of this, but I always hear about entities having power. Or what are your thoughts on other entities here interacting with people? Does that happen? Meaning mostly from the realm of like what someone might describe as a demon with power, or a summoned being, or a jinn, or
look, I know Whitley Strieber, and I was on his show. We had a very interesting conversation, and Whitley certainly completely believes firsthand contact with aliens. Now, some people call them extraterrestrials, but again, I subscribe to the theory they're more interdimensional than extraterrestrial, but that's neither here nor there. So, is it possibility that there's contact being made? Yeah, sure. It's possible. Again, I don't have any direct knowledge of that. I only know that I have spoken with people who firmly believe that they've had, these close encounters of the first kind.
I guess that was really the question. Have you had any experience with it? Because I'm like, in the realm of having, I know that this doesn't happen as much anymore, but like any sort of psychic connection or anything to anything in that realm. But what do you think of AI going forward in this? How can this help us? Is AI a good thing going forward with in the realm of quantum spirituality?
Or is it the end of creativity?
I mean, that's a big question that I am wary of AI for the same reason a lot of other people are wary about it, which is that it can be so powerful and so life-changing that can we trust that it's going to be used responsibly? Okay. Now, you probably read recently about the latest flap with Google's AI and how you had a bunch of kind of lefty millennials, and their bias was so ridiculously apparent in the AI that Google was completely embarrassed and had to retract it, because there's an example of humans manipulating an agenda, which affected the outcome of the AI in very obvious ways. So, there's number one, the human factor of AI being misused, and then there's the factor of AI becoming sentient itself, of growing into intelligence, self-repairing, and becoming sentient itself. So I'm a little wary about AI because I already think we live in a simulated reality. And to me, AI affords the opportunity to go even further into illusion, to go into even further into a simulated state. I mean, I can certainly see that one day that AI, under certain circumstances, can become the new drug for people to escape reality. I mean, you already see a little bit of that in video games, don't you? I mean, haven't we already seen that for years now? Kids getting hooked on video games, and it's like they constantly play it, and it affects their minds, it affects the way they look at things and act and everything else. So extrapolate that by a power of 10 with the new AI, and think of just how much that can become a new drug for people to escape reality. So although I see the positive uses of it, I almost kind of feel like I wish it really wouldn't happen, because I feel it's too dangerous. If you read the book Dune, the movie's out right now. For any of you Dune fans out there, they had something in there called the Butlerian Jihad, and that was when the AI reached a kind of Terminator-like existence and almost exterminated humanity, or Battlestar Galactica, with the Cylons and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the human mind even encompass the possibility of those realities is showing that those realities are entirely possible to happen. Nothing that we dream of hasn't happened on another level. I mean,
It would be
we don't.
fun though, right? Wouldn't it be fun to like fight some AI robots? Like if that's what it comes down to, if AI becomes robots and starts fighting us, then it's like all bets are off. It's
Here's
almost
the
like
deal.
what people.
Here's the deal, Wade. We're sending you out in the front lines if that happens, and then you can
Hey,
report.
I'm ready. I am ready.
Yeah.
Listen, I just think anything is better than sitting here and withering away. I'll die. Some robots can kill me. I think that would be kind of fun. It's exciting. It's better than like what we're doing now, which is like this Cold War. Like, is nuclear war going to happen? Like, what's going on? We're all just terrified all the time, and oh, there's terrorism and like blah blah blah. I would rather it just happen. I would rather the world just sort of like decomposed in front of me so that I had something to talk about. Because right now I got nothing.
Thanks for the bright side there. I feel enlivened by
Silver linings. Silver linings. We should wrap it up. Willie, do you have?
I don't really have any sort of summary of tonight. I will say I am just completely fascinated listening to you talk, Peter, and I'm so excited to read everything that you've written and to watch every video that you've made. I feel like you give me hope into the idea that there's a chance that, not that we need to figure anything out, but that I like the version of what the universe may be I might like.
Well, look, really, the sentiment that you just expressed is exactly why I got into writing these things. So, I mean, it really makes me happy, to hear that, because, ultimately, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, the success you have is emotionally connecting with your audience. It's one thing to be moved intellectually, but it's a whole different thing to be moved emotionally. When you're moved emotionally, then you really start to move mountains. Then things, really start to happen. So if I can instill or inspire people to, pursue these lines of inquiry and increase their own knowledge, then I feel like I've done my task.
I don't know who wouldn't. I mean, like, I don't know who's so happy with their life that they would just be like, yeah, cool, I'll just do this for my whole life. Like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you look into some stuff?
I think, unfortunately, the majority of people in the world fall into the category that you just described. They get so used to, I make the analogy at the front of the book, Quantum Spirituality, is, do you want to live in the basement or do you want to live in the penthouse? Unfortunately, most people live in the basement. I mean, they survive, they go to work, they have families, they enjoy themselves from time to time, but they're not really seeing what life is all about. But when you move up in the penthouse, you start to see the panorama of life in front of you. And these questions that we've been talking about tonight and seeking the knowledge to answer some of these questions starts to become part of your life. It starts to become a motivation for your life. So we want to get as many people to move out of the basement and up to the penthouse as possible.
Well said. The book that's new is called Quantum Spirituality. There's the first Souls Trilogy that's out, and then what's the Pope one called?
That's the first book of the first Souls Trilogy.
Oh, it's part of the trilogy.
Part of the trilogy. But what I was going to suggest is, if people can go to my website, petercanova.com, it's PeterCanova.com, you'll find descriptions of all my work, the books and videos and interesting articles and things that, are really pretty enlightening in and of themselves. And also, you can just, go to Amazon and look at the reviews on all the books. I mean, all my books have about 90% 5- and 4-star reviews, and you can read what other people are saying about them. So,
well, thanks so much for donating your time. Do you want to stick around and do the bonus?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So go to patreon.com/RealLifeSciFi. Get access to the bonus episode. We're going to be talking to Peter Canova about who fucking knows, like some shit. Like, it's going to get deep, I think. Like, it was already kind of deep. It's going to get even deeper. It might even get personal. I don't know. PeterCanova.com. Check out all of his stuff. Quantum Spirituality is the new book. Thanks again for being here. Thank you all for listening. And just because you're paranoid
doesn't mean they're not after you.
Real life sci-fi.